So we've already talked about rhythm and melody. We put them together and we built a song. Different instruments play different notes, or if we're on the piano, we can play more than one note at a time. And how they interact with the melody, those notes, is called harmony. Harmony is the combination of notes to produce chords, which typically accompany the melody. So it goes along with the melody to give it color, to make it interesting. There are a couple of different ways to build chords. Chords are more than one note. A dyad are two notes, and they're one on top of another. That means we play them together. And that's a dyad, meaning two-note chord. And then if we build a three-note chord, it's called a triad. And these are chords. It could be major or minor, and major or minor sounds like, here's major. Major being happy, minor being mysterious or sad. And those are a fundamental harmonic nuance that we can give to our melody. On the board you'll see our 5-line staff. Again, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth line. First, second, third, fourth space. We have here the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. It's a scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. A very familiar scale. Now, in order to create a harmony based on a melody, we have some work to do. There are other pitches than the note that we play in melody that can help create our harmony. The three notes that I'm going to put on each note here, I'm going to build a chord on each one, are triads. So C, and I'm going to skip a space. I'm going to put a note on the line, and then another line. That creates a triad. So if I were playing the note C, those other notes, the E and the G, blend with that note. Those two notes there. So in building these triads based on the scale will look like this. Now, the way our pianos lined up with our half steps and whole steps and 3 black notes and 2 black notes, again, Pythagoras thought this up, that Greek mathematician. It comes that if I build a chord on each of these scale steps, and I'm using all the natural keys, all the white keys, I'm not altering any notes to play these notes that I've written there. There's a series of them that are that major, happy tonality, and some that are minor, which is that more mysterious or sad. So if I were to play all those triads going up the scale based on C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, I would build the triad by skipping and playing it, skipping those spaces. And then if I go up to the next, these are all triads built on the scale steps. Now, because we have these black notes separated here, the amount of half steps to create those notes are going to be different for each one of those triads, each one of those chords. So if I'm doing, that creates a major chord. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps that make the third. Remember the interval of a third, 1, 2, 3. But half steps, I have 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 4 half steps between E and G. So when I play them, I'm playing and here, and that's a major third, happy, and this is a minor third. And when you put it together, a major third and a minor third, it sounds like that. Now, for the D chord, I have 4 half steps between D and F, and then 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from F to A. So because it's the opposite, see, it was 5 and 4, this is 4 and 5, we went from a major chord to a minor chord. So that happens with all of our chords on our scale steps. The first one is major. Second one is minor. The third chord is minor. The 4 chord is major. 5 chord is major. 6 chord is minor. 7th chord is what we call minor diminished, and we'll get into that some other time. And then we end on the C chord. The 1, the 4, and the 5 are primary chords. They're major. The minor chords, 2, 3, 6, and 7, are called secondary chords. So this is what we just heard. The 1 chord, large case 1, meaning major. It's a C chord, and it's a triad, skipping notes based on the C note. Now, the second chord is D. Lowercase 2 because it's minor. 3, E, lowercase number because it's minor. F, the chord built on F, skipping space, 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 is a large case, Roman numeral 4. G, GBD, skipping line, 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 create a chord, makes it naturally major. We have a large case 5. A, smaller case number because it's a minor triad. B, small case again because it's minor. And then C is the octave higher than that chord, which is C. Now, in theory, we're basically putting names and definitions to these sounds, to these pitches and these rhythms. There's also a technical name for the scale steps. C, we're going to talk about C a lot. It's the tonic. When we are playing in the key of C, which means no sharps or flats, we're going to start and end on a tonic note and a tonic chord. That's home, tonic. The fourth scale step, again a very important one because it's one of our primary chords, it's large case, is called subdominant, sub meaning under, like submarine, and 5, large case, major, primary chord, dominant. So we have dominant, subdominant next to each other, sub meaning under, okay, so it's under before the 5. The 7th scale step is called the leading tone because it leads to the tonic. Ti, do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. It wants to go somewhere. It wants to go to do. That's where that name comes from, leading tone. Most nursery rhymes, most patriotic songs, most popular music, most, if we're playing blues, use the 1, 4, and 5 chords to harmonize that simple melody. So we have our melody here that was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It was actually written by Mozart as the alphabet song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so forth and so on. That's what was suspected, was that it was an alphabet song. It has become that in our American culture. So we have C here. We have G here. Well, what chord had C and G in it? I told you that we usually start on the tonic, right? So if I wanted to create a harmony for that melody in the first measure, I would simply put the tonic there, the 1 chord, and it would play and blend with the rest of the measure. Now, here's an A. An A is not in the C, E, G chord, but if we look real closely at where is A? Oh, here's A. There's no A over here. There's an A over here, but I'm going to use this primary chord, F, hold up, to harmonize my second measure, F, A, C. Remember, it was based on the note. The triad is based on the scale step. C, D, E, F, and then we have the triad on that. Now, we probably will clash going back to this again, but we have the same thing. Do, do, sol, sol, la, la, and then sol again. C, C, G, G, A, G. So I can go back to that resting place. 1 again. This was 4, by the way. Now, I have here an F. F also happens to be in our G chord, which is the 5 chord. If I were to count up 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it creates a G7, a 5-7 chord, which pulls, because it has the leading tone in it. Okay? So if I go to G, G, B, D, and then F, that's F in the treble clef, and I play that and sound the 5-7 chord with that, it should blend. And I'm going to play this and we'll hear what it sounds like. Here's an E. It matches with C, E, G. D is part of the G chord. G, B, D. And then we'll put F. And then that becomes the 5-7. This is the 1. And here's the 1 again. And that's C, E, G. So basically, I took our 3 primary chords to create harmony for this. Now I'm going to go to the piano, and I'm going to play, those are whole notes. I could play those right through the measure. Now, I can't put whole note and whole note here, so I have to create Oh, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, I'll make that half note chord, 2 counts, 1, 2. And then I'll make this a half note chord for 3 and 4. Same thing with this. Half notes each, half notes each. All right, we see the counting for that. Whole, 3, 4. Half note, half note, half note. 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm harmonizing this with our chords with either whole notes or half note chords. So follow along and listen. Starting from the beginning, I'm going to give you 4 for nothing. I'm going to count off 4 with my tempo. Here's my speed. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what I did here, I put 1, that's the C chord, 4, 1, 5, 7, 1, 5, 7, 1. We call the progression of different chords to a melody a chord progression. So that this chord progression, if I were to talk to another musician, I would say we're going to start with 1, we're going to go to the 4, back to the 1, to 5, 7, 1, 5, 7, and 1. That's my chord progression. It's the chords in sequence, going from left to right, harmonizing our melody. Now, there are different ways of memorizing what notes are on what line or spaces. If you play a musical instrument, you learn those notes and they become automatic for you to say, this is a C, this is an E, this is a G, this is a B, and you can automatically do that. If you would like to memorize them, we could go backwards from G, F, E, D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, by counting up and down the alphabet, or going up and down the alphabet from G. Another way to do it is to actually memorize the lines and the spaces. The lines are E, G, B, D, F. A way to remember that is every good boy does fine. Every good boy deserves fudge. And there's just so many different acronyms that you can make to memorize E, G, B, D, F for the lines. For the spaces, it's an easy one. F, A, C, E. It spells out the word face. Simply E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. When we talk about inversions, it's taking that C and actually inverting it with C in the bottom, E and G stacked on top. That's called root position. The tonic is on the bottom. That's root position. I take away this note and I put it on top. And now we have first inversion. Now we have second inversion. We take the third. Remember, C was 1, D was 2, this is 3, and we put that on top. The fifth is in the bottom position. So we had root position, where C was in the bass, in the bottom. First inversion, where E was in the bottom position. And then second inversion, where the fifth is in the bass. Now the reason why this is important is because bouncing around in root position doesn't necessarily give a smooth transition of notes. If they're harmony or melody, doesn't give them a smooth transition. So smooth transition would mean going to a note near the one you just came from. There's also a third inversion where if you have do, mi, sol, te, if you have that seventh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you have that seventh scale step. Now I can take that down an octave, and I could put that F down here, and then G would be here, B, D. That would take it down an octave, and that would be your third inversion. Whereas you had this F up here in that position, it's now down here, and since F, which is the seventh scale step, is in the bottom position, we call that third inversion. And now I'll give you an idea of what they sound like. We saw what inversions looked like on the staff. Now I'm going to show you what they look like and what they sound like and why we may want to use different inversions for the same chord. The tonic C chord is the first, third, and fifth scale step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, 5. They're the notes C, E, G. This is root position, where do, 1, C, in this C scale, is in the bottom. Root position. So here we have a triad. C is in the bottom. To invert it from root position to first inversion, we're going to invert it. We're going to change it around. We're going to take that C, and we know that there's a C an octave higher, and we're going to now just have the third in the bottom position. So instead of it sounding, it's going to sound like this. Listen. Now, we have first inversion. We're going to take the third scale step and we're going to jump it up an octave to here. And now we're going to have the fifth in the bottom. And it's going to sound like this. So we went from root position, first inversion, second inversion. The G7 I talked about. Here's root position. Take that G, put it up here. I jumped up. Now we have first inversion. Take that note B, looks like that up here. Octave higher, take that away. And that's second inversion. And now we're going to take away the D, pop it up here, octave higher, and play it. And that's third inversion, when that fourth note of the chord is in the bottom position. So we had root position, first inversion, second inversion, and then third inversion. Oops, sorry. Sometimes we want to play root position for the one chord, C, But then I want to play the F chord. That's root position for F, A, C. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, D, E, F, F, A, C. Well, a smooth transition would not be from here to here, but I can bring that C down to here. And that's second inversion F. I can go, because we share the C in both chords, and these are right next to each other. So if we were to play, it would be a smoother transition than. So now we're going to talk about how we put all of this together, and using our chords here, we're going to create a chord progression, a 12-bar blues. Now, 12-bar blues dates back over 150 years. It's the beginning of the jazz era. It comes from before the 20th century. And what we have for a 12-bar blues is 12 bars. Now, I told you that measure and bar are the same thing. And we're going to use the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5/7 chord. Those are the 3 chords that we use in 12-bar blues. B.B. King was very famous for his 12-bar blues songs. Tracy Chapman did a lot of 12-bar blues. Elvis Presley did 8-bar blues, but the same chord progression. And Eric Clapton did a number of 12-bar blues pieces. So YouTube them and see what you come up with. Now, as I said before, a 12-bar blues is 12 measures, 12 bars, and there's a formula. For our 1 chord, we have the chord C. F chord is 4, G7 is 5/7. I'm going to put our 12-bar blues together using the Roman numerals. And I did that right here. First of all, it's 4/4, which means it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a bar line, 1 chord, and it's a C chord. Now, the next chord in the chord progression of a 12-bar blues is a 1 chord. That's going to be for 4 beats also. The 1 chord for 4 beats also, and the 1 chord for 4 beats also. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 measures out of the 12 that are just going to be C, the 1 chord. Now notice we have the second line and the third line, all with 4 measures on each line. The second line of the 12-bar blues, measure 5 and 6, are the 4 chord. And in this case, it's F. F. Then it goes back to the C chord, the 1 chord. Now, the third line, 1, 2, 3, 4 measures. The first measure of the third line here starts with a 5 chord, and we know that the 5 chord is a G chord. And then it goes down 1 measure only there. It goes down to the F chord, 1 measure, and then 1, 2 measures of the C chord. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is that chord. We play a chord, 3 notes all together. We call that a block chord. It's just solid as a block, all together. When I break them up, those notes, it's called a broken chord. Separate notes. So block chord all played together. Broken chord separated. And those are different ways of harmonizing. Or you could do it either way. Same notes. One's block chord, one's a broken chord. Important word. broken chord is called an arpeggio. Arpeggio, it's Italian. Arpeggio is a broken chord. You've heard this. All that is breaking up the block chord. Okay? Now, in the 12-bar blues, we are going to play a broken chord, an arpeggio, in the left hand for our walking bass line. See how it's broken up? It would be a block chord. And we call that a walking bass line, because the bass player would probably just walk his fingers up and down the neck of the instrument. Well, I'll play that in the bass part on the piano. I'm going to play block chords in my right hand. So it'll sound like this. Okay? So when we're counting our 12-bar blues out, we're going to have our walking bass line. 4 of the notes will be here, because they're our quarter note and our steady beat, and then 4 will be here. 4 will be here. 4 will be here. So we can actually count the 4 beats to every measure by listening to our walking bass line by my left hand on the piano. These chords, the 1 chord, the C chord, see there are 4 measures of them, are all going to sound the same. Then the second line here will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4 of the F chord, the 4 chord, and then we'll pop right back down to the C chord here and here. The third line, we're going to go to the G chord, we're going to walk it for 4 beats, and then we're going to go to the F chord for 4 beats, and then the C chord for 2 more measures, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 beats. This is, in parentheses, it's a 5/7 chord, which is basically a turnaround chord. If I wanted to, I'm not going to do that first, I'll show that to you a little later. So, I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4. The first line I'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So you can keep track along with me and what you're hearing. Okay, I'll give a count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4, 4. We're going to start the second line. Back to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Third line. 2. There's the G, no, F. 2, 3, 4. Back to C. So that is the 12-bar blues. Now F. Back to C. G. That's the chord progression. So I'll play it one more time. And at the very end, instead of playing the C chord, the dominant 7, the 5/7, always pulls to 1 because it has that 7th scale step, that leading tone. So it's going to lead us right back to the beginning again, and you'll hear it. I'll count along with you. We'll do our walking bass line again. That'll help give us our counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Third measure. Second line. Now third line. Last 2 measures. Here's the C, here's the G. that's a 12-bar blues. So the first thing we did was we talked about how notes and rhythms create songs. We had an example of Twinkle Twinkle. We played some consonant and dissonant intervals and chords. We talked about major and minor, happy or mysterious and sad. We talked about 2-note chords being dyads, 3-note chords being triads. We talked about those chords could be either block, played all together, or broken, played individually. We went over different names of chords based on a scale in the key of C. We could also play the 12-bar blues that we just heard in any key we want. We just have to call one of these other letter names 1. And when we do that, say for example, if D is 1, then G is 4 and A is 5. And we have to make some adjustments with our key, with the black and white notes playing together. So that's why, one of the reasons why we use the Roman numeral. Because when we say, oh, what key do you want to play that in? We say, oh, the key of G. Then we know that G is the 1 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. C is the 4 chord, and D is the 5 chord. And we make those adjustments as a musician. We talked about the primary chords being the major chords. And we find those in Roman numerals that are large case. 1, 4, and 5, primary chords. The minor chords, 2, 3, and 6, and 7, are minor chords, and they're in lowercase Roman numerals. We talked about inversions, how we change around the order of the same notes. Root position, where do or 1 or the tonic is in the bass. This is root position. Then we take that C, we put it up here, and the third, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, is in the bottom, and that's first inversion. And then we take that note and we put it on top, an octave higher, and G, the 5th scale step, C, D, E, F, G, is in the bottom position, and that's second inversion. Then we went over the 12-bar blues, which is a formula of chords in a sequence. That's called a progression, going from one to the next. And we use chords to harmonize our melody, or to improvise a melody. Look up some, as I said, some musicians that are famous for 12-bar blues. B.B. King, Elvis Presley, he's more 8-bar blues. Tracy Chapman, and Eric Clapton. You have to Google it. And so that concludes our lesson in harmony.